Greetings and welcome back. This is the second part of the running water float series. Last time I discussed about the stick float, and hopefully you picked up a few little tips off that. In fact, I did mention a little bit about my complete float fishing manual, which is now available for sale. There's 166 pages, and as I say, it covers everything from the wagglers, stick floats, running water floats, and then pole floats and some commercial floats. So as I say, it's definitely worth investing. £15 at the moment before the price goes up. I've just sold one out to a customer. I even sign it, a signed autograph copy. So if, as I say, if you're interested, you want one, go over to the website goldmedalfloats.co.uk, and there you go. So anyway, so as I said, last time I talked about stick floats, and stick floats are very, very popular when it comes to running water floats. And when I was making the series, obviously I should have probably talked about running water floats before the stick floats, but the reason being the balsa float, which is, as far as my research goes, the balsa wood was a float making material as early as the 1920s, and it preceded cork and elderpith, which is what a lot of the older generation anglers used to use. The first balsa floats were running water floats. In fact, I'm just in the making one now. As you can see there, that's the balsa, shaped like a cigar. As I said, these are excellent float making material because they're very buoyant, and they're ideal, for casting and trotting. What I've done, as you can probably see, I've shaped it like a cigar, put a stem on the bottom, which I'll be whipping an eye on, and of course I'll be painting the top with a high fluorescent colour so we can see at distances. In fact, I've made a couple up already. There's one there, one there. That one's a colour blue, that one's a colour black. They also come in white, and they also come in plastic as well. That's what they call the loafer, which is almost identical to the balsa. But I'll be talking about that in a minute. So let me go back to talking about the balsa. Now the balsa, as I say, it's an ideal running water float. It's very adaptable, and you use two rubbers, one on the top, obviously one on the bottom, or in this case I've got an eye, so you can thread it through an eye, save you putting a rubber. You can put a rubber on the bottom though, as well as going through the eye, and that will give a bit of stability on the line, because these are chunky floats, and when you cast, when you're casting and striking, you don't want it shifting up the line. You want to, keep it rigid. In fact, one of the little tips, sometimes I'll actually put a little dust shot just above the top rubbers. That'll save it moving up the line. So it's a little tip for you. Anyway, now the concept of these floats, because they're more like, I suppose, what we would call a trotting float. The balsa, in fact, because you can mould and shape a balsa, the balsa comes into play in a lot of floats, which I'll be talking about in the future. Like sliding floats, fluted floats, and stick floats are made of balsa as well. But the balsa float, as I say, these are used in very fast running water, and of course with the aerodynamics, it depends on the on the shape of it, but they're easier for casting and going through the water, without impediment. Now I'll use a running water balsa float on many occasions, usually on rivers like the Severn or the River Wye, because it helps to ride the turbulent swims, and it's perfect for catching dace, chub, roach, etc. Now balsa floats are also very good because they also come in. You can make them in all sizes. You can go right up to like 10 swan, and these, like this one, is 4 swan. I usually find 3 or 4 swan are normally ideal sizes. Anyway, so when you're shotting up the balsa float, it's best to use a bulk down. And I'll show you that diagram now. Yeah, okay, there you are. There's a shape of a balsa, and there's the shotting pattern. So as you can see, you've got a bulk down, and then you've got your dropper shots. As I say, this is set at 6 foot. And if you go over to the website, you can see it, or better still, by the manual. So, as I say, now when you shot the balsa float, it's always best to have the bulk at least 2/3 down the line from the float. And this allows the float to cast very easily, because when you're casting the bulk below the float out, and that helps you can swing it underarm or sideways or even overarm. But basically, because of the weight of a balsa float, because it's quite heavy, 4 or 5 swan, you can cast it quite easy by flicking out from the side. Of course, and with the dropper shots, always making sure the dropper shot on the bottom doesn't flick back over the bulk. So space it out so that is less than the bulk to the first shot, okay, to your hook. There you are. So as I said, most balsa floats, they all come with round domes, and because of the high visual of these floats, you can see them a long way downstream. And also it's a good idea as well, just like a stick float, to grease the line, so when you mend the line, you're not moving the float out of position. Okay, so that's the start of the running water floats. Okay, now I'm going to show you a float very similar, and I call this the Big Chubber. And this is basically made out of balsa, exactly the same, except these are almost twice the size, if you like, than a standard balsa. And there's one there. And this will hold, I think, 10 swan shots. And these are ideal for chub fishing in big rivers, down the middle or far side. Again, you shot it with the bulk down, and because of the shoulder, you shape the shoulder on it, it's far easier to mend the line without moving it out of position at long distances. And as you can see, a much more visible tip to it. Again, there's more on this in the manual or more over on the website. But this is, if you like, the next stage up from the balsa. And as I say, I've had some great successes using these. White championships and over 100 odd pound. I come second in the white championships twice now with 84 pound and 82 pound using this float with big lumps of bread. But again, that's something that you can see on a later vlog. Okay, now the next float I'm going to show you, and this is a design that I designed myself. I call it the half barrel float. And basically it's balsa. It's shaped like the half barrel, and it has a cane tip to it. Again, now I use this type of float on very, very fast or very turbulent water, because you want something that will hold up in the water but still be quite sensitive in the tip. Unlike the balsa, where the balsa is basically, all balsa, which gives you a bit more buoyancy, this is more sensitive. So again, this is another design. This has got a wire stem, but it comes with carbon or cane. And this one, I think this is 18 gram. So you can see, it's got a very big hefty float that we use in very fast turbulent water and deep water as well. Okay, that's the half barrel. Again, in the manual or over on the website. Okay, now I go back, as I said, talking about the loafer float. Now this, as I've shown you just now, this is a clear crystal waggler. Similar to the waggler in the way that it doesn't cast a shadow. And in all intents and purposes, it's almost like a bubble that, when it travels down the swim. Now I have found this float absolutely fantastic, because when you fish in shallow water, just a couple of feet, then this is perfect because you don't spook the fish. I've had some great successes using this particular one, and as I said, and because there's a slight shoulder to it, you can hold your back slightly. As I say, these come from, well, I think you get them from as low as like 4 BB up to about 5 or 6 swan. And this is very similar to another type of float, which is shaped like an avon. But I'll be talking about the avon again in a minute, but this is another similar float. Again, the way you fish these, again, double rubber, bulk down, very similar to identical to the balsa. Okay, so as I said, this float is perfect. I use it on the Wye quite a lot, on the River Usk, and Hampshire Avon I remember fishing at. I'm sure it'd work on the Trent, the Kennet Stour, the Severn, the Wharf, the Thames. Well, pretty anywhere, I think. The Derwent, the Swale. I mean, these are just a few rivers that I know that would suit this type of float. Okay, so as I said, that's a perfect float for camouflage. Okay, now I'm going to show you another balsa float, and this is one of my most popular floats that I make for people. I mentioned in the Waggler series about the sliding Waggler, where it outperforms the pole. Well, sometimes on running water, sliding Waggler works definitely in running water, but a float that's far better than that is a sliding balsa, and then I got one there. It's quite elongated, as you can see. Got the cane, it's got a standout eye, and a standout eye on the top. Again, a very high visible tip to it. This is an island tip, and how you fish these is it's quite simple. When you fish swims, for example, that are deep, and there's quite a few of them swims on the Severn and the lower Severn, the Wye, and Thames and places where this comes into its own. Again, you fish with the bulk and droppers, but what you have to do on this one is obviously put a sliding knot above the top eye, so that when you cast in, the bulk will take it down to the depth. So if you're fishing, say, I don't know, 15, 20 foot, this will take it straight down before the knot stops it on the top eye and it settles in the swim. And this is as I say, one of my most popular floats because, as I say, this will catch fish where most other floats won't. So that's what they call the slide-in balsa. And that comes in all different ranges. This is an 8 swan one, but they go down to 2 swan all the way up to like 12 swan. Now I'm going to show you a float that's probably, again, another very, very popular float. Now this float has been around for many years. It's the Avon float. There you are. Now the Avon float has probably been written about many times, before, and according to some research I've done, the great Billy Lane praised this superb float. And as I said, it originated from I believe the Warwickshire Avon, and it was a very successful float, and it's probably used, as I say, quite a lot on a lot of rivers throughout the country. Modern day developments, this is actually balsa. It's got a peacock quill that runs up through the center, whipped on the bottom and the top. Okay, and you basically put it on the line by putting a rubber on the top, one on the bottom of the body, and then usually put one on the bottom, and that gives it a bit more stability. What we do, we also, if you look at that, we whip with extra cotton. That gives it a bit more stability, and after you varnish it, then it comes quite stiff. Okay, so again, now this float, as I say, this Avon float was used in great effect on the Bristol Avon, which is one of my local waters, and it works well on medium, to sort of fast flowing water, and depths between 8 and 14 foot. Now the modern day development this float. There was a chap named Mervyn Haskins. They call him Topper, and they renamed this float the Topper float, only because of his great many successes that he had, using this float. But it is an Avon float. At the end of the day, that is the true name of it. Although a lot of people, as I say, refer it to as the Topper float. Now, I do know that Topper developed this later, because instead of using balsa, in fact they used to use cork many years ago, cork bodies, but instead of using it, they now he started using polystyrene, a firm polystyrene, and that worked just as well, and you probably didn't have to worry too much then about varnishing it, because that would keep it afloat. But as I say, this is the original one, and the shape, as I say, is what we call an Avon shape. Now, there are some other shapes that you can make an Avon out of, and I'll show it to you now. Yeah. So those are three standard shapes. So you've got the standard shape in the middle, then you've got the smaller dumpier, then you've got a reverse pear shape, and this is ideal for holding back in flowing water. Okay, as you can see, that's the shot-in pattern, and again, full description how it's being used you can find either on the website or in the manual. Now, casting the Avon is also very similar to the balsa, with a side cast or an overhead cast, obviously making sure there's no trees above you. And as I say, it's the bulk that carries the weight down into its destination in the water, and I like to think it's almost like an instant setting, because as soon as a bulk sinks, your float settles, and it's instant fishing almost straight away. Okay, again, if you go to the website or buy the manual, you'll see exactly how I use it and how you can feather the line so it reaches the water. Now these are perfect. They work well on the wire as well, believe it or not. They're a bit more sensitive than a balsa, because they will drag under with turbulent water. But as I say, they're very good for catching roach, and any fish that are shy biting, as I say, and it's a perfect float for that. So definitely worth one in your tackle box. Okay, right now I'm going to show you a float. Again, it's a derivative of the balsa. Now this float, it holds fond memories for me, because it's a float that I used many years ago in my younger years, and I won the Welsh Junior National using one of these floats. Now it's what they call a fluted float. Now again, it's shaped almost elongated cigar. But if you look closely, you'll see it got flutes on it. Okay, so basically it's like little 4 rudders. It's been shaped in such a way that when you fish it, the current actually catches it, and it flows through quite naturally through on the river. But it's also, because of the flutes on it, you can hold it. It's probably one of the only balsa floats I know where you can hold it still without it riding too far out of the water. It's a great little float. Not many people use them these days, as I said, and I actually I do make them. They're about £4 each, because they do take a while to make, because you have to take your time and groove out of a dowel. You've got to groove these, if you like, wings to them. And they come in all different sizes. In fact, so there's the 2 types. If you look there, see, there's the elongated fluted float, and there's the shorter fluted float with a stem base to it. Again, you shot these with the bulk down, and again, you use them in medium to fast sort of flowing waters. And as I say, it's a lovely float. If you want to know more about it, as I say, buy the manual or go over to the website. Okay, now I'm going to show you a float again. Now this is a later technology, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history of this particular float. It's called the Bolognese float. And if you look at it carefully, it's almost shaped like a reverse pair pole float, where in fact it's a river float. Now, the history, the anglers in the town of Bolognese, which is in Italy, developed the Bolognese float. Their rivers were very deep and fast, and in fact they also developed long telescopic rods, and they call them Bolognese rods. And from the Bolognese rods, they made the Bolognese float. Now, the reason they built these floats is that because of the water, which was over 20 foot deep in a lot of places, very wide rivers, and this Bolognese float was perhaps the only type of float that you could fish half decent, on the bottom. And it's, as I say, it's shaped almost aerodynamically with a shoulder on the top, which is for holding back. And as I said, these shape of floats, because of the high reverse pair, it's almost like a very, very large shoulder. And as I say, for holding back, it's perfect. You can either use a balsa, or in this case, this is a nylon stem, which also gives this sensitivity as well. Because balsa, obviously, being more buoyant, where nylon or cane, sometimes we use cane, gives it a bit more, if you like, sensitivity. And again, you shot this with a boat down, so as it goes down, it's instant setting. And as I said, these Bolognese floats have taken the rivers by storm in the UK. They were introduced in the 1980s, I believe. And now, prior to that, there was a local chap who used to make some floats, and he designed something very, very similar. And this is one of his original floats. Again with a shoulder on the top, and again with a balsa tip. But if you look at that, they're very, almost like, very similar, except the Bolognese is just one step further because of the wider body to it. As I said, we use a lot of these on the River Wye. I remember using them in Ireland. In fact, Italy, using Bolognese rods and Bolognese floats, they won the World Championships in Italy. They actually in Ireland. They actually walked away with it. I've forgotten the year now. It was on the River Erne, 1980, 89, yeah, people 92, I think, something around about there. So there you are, that's another float. Again, this one's a 10-gram one, but if you want more detail, pop to the website or buy the manual. Okay, here's another float I'd like to show you as well, and it's almost like a Bolognese again, but with a shorter stem, high visible nylon tip to it. And this is a design that I designed myself. Again, perfect for fishing down the middle of the river. Also, you can fish this quite in shallow water as well, 3 or 4 foot deep. You haven't got the long stem, so again, it's a perfect little float. Yeah, I just quickly show you, these are the Bolly floats now available. We call them Bolly River floats, in fact, because as you can see, they're very thin tips to them, and they've got the big shoulder on them, and this has got a wire stem to it. So as again, same shot and pattern than all the chubbers with a bug down, and this is ideal, as I said, for holding back against fast flowing water and currents. So there you are, that's the River Bolly. Yeah, now I'm going to show you another Bolly float. This is not my design. This is another company, Dave Harrell. He came out with this one. Now this one, as you can see, this is very, very wide body to it, wire stem. Trouble is, it wire bends a bit. I think I would have probably used carbon rather than wire because it is bending a little bit. But Yeah. Again, I use this to great effect as well, winning a Winter League only last year with 44 pound of chub on the bread. So again, it's a great float for fishing mid-river. Because of the shoal, you can mend the line without it moving too far out of the of the run, if you like. So there you are. And that's on. I've got this on a winder already. My bug shots. There you are. So that's a good one. Okay, right, coming to the end now of the balsa shaped floats, but I'm going to show you just a couple more. This is another development that I made myself, and I call them the running water bat float. Okay, as you can see, it's very slim in nature. This is quite a big one. This is about a 10 swan shot one. This one is more like a 5 swan shot, and that's like just a gram. Now I use these floats when we're fishing just under the rod tip, and you're trotting down, and basically you want to hold it against the flow. Well, as you know, most floats, doesn't matter whether they got big bodies or whether they got big shoulders, you can only hold them by overshotting them, and even then you quite sometimes haven't got the control. Where these floats, I call them a bat float because the wings are like a bat, but it's like a fat float. I will be talking about flat floats, when I come to the pole floats. But again, this is virgin on both, because you can use this on the pole or you can use them on the rod and line. Again, slightly overshotted with the bulk down, and again with your dropper shots just tripping bottom. As I say, it's a lovely little float. Again, available from myself from the Gold Medal Floats website, or as I say, if you want to look at the manual, it tells you more about them there. Okay, but I thought I'd just bring them in because, as I say, they're a perfect float for holding back against fast flowing water, and they do work almost anywhere. So there, I've used them on the Avon, I've used them on the Y, and I quite often, pick up sections and, in the main monies using them. So, okay. Now another float I'm going to show you again is virgin on a pole float come river float, and I call it the deep dock slider because you can use it on the rod and reel as well as a pole. I'll show you a diagram there. So if you look at that, there. So it's almost similar to a whoops, if you can quite see that. Very similar to a sliding balsa. It's got the long stem and a long cane to it, and again it's got the eye on the top and the eye protruding on the bottom, and you can fish this in very, very deep water. And because of the nature of the body, with like an Avon body, you can actually hold it back slightly once it's flowing. But again, I'll be talking more about that on the pole floats, which will be in the next part of the series, which will be section 3 of the running water floats. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that bit. Now, please, if you want any more information, you can always drop me a line, leave a comment below, or as I say, send me an email. Go over to the website, see more detailed instructions. I will be using these floats throughout the fishing series, so again, I might be able to demonstrate them to you. And better still, buy the manual. It's the only book you'll ever need when it comes to learning about float fishing. Okay, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.